A Sunday school teacher posed a question to her class. If I were to sell my house, car, donate my possessions to charity, and give all my money to the church, would I get into heaven? The children unanimously replied, no. The teacher then asked, if I were to keep the church clean, mow the lawn, and keep everything neat and tidy, would I get into heaven? Once again, the answer was a resounding no. Apparently perplexed, the teacher asked, well then, how can I get into heaven? A quick-witted 5-year-old boy piped up and replied, you have to be dead. A very handsome man gets into a terrible car accident. The doctors save his life, but he loses one eye. Before a nice glass one can be fitted, he's temporarily given a wooden eye. The man becomes very depressed because of his eye loss and sits at home moping around. Eventually, his friends come over and drag him out to a bar to try and cheer him up. While at the bar, he's still just sitting there looking depressed, not really talking. One of his friends suggests he tries to talk to a cute girl who seems alone at the bar. No, she'll never go for a man with a wooden eye, the man says. Okay, how about that girl over there? His friend responds. She has a really big nose. The man walks over to the girl and asks, would you like to dance? Very excited and shocked to be asked to dance by such an attractive man, the woman responds, would I? Would I? To which the man quickly responds, big nose, big nose. A blonde walks into a bank in New York City and asks for the loan officer. She says she's going to Europe for business for 2 weeks and needs to borrow $5,000. The bank officer says the bank will need some kind of security for the loan, so the blonde hands over the keys to a new Rolls-Royce. The car is parked on the street in front of the bank. She has the title and everything checks out. The bank agrees to accept the car as collateral for the loan. The bank's president and its officers all enjoy a good laugh at the blonde for using a $250,000 Rolls-Royce as collateral against a $5,000 loan. An employee of the bank then drives the Rolls into the bank's underground garage and parks it there. 2 weeks later, the blonde returns and repays the $5,000 and the interest, which comes to $15.41. The loan officer says, Miss, we are very happy to have had your business, and this transaction has worked out very nicely. But we're a little puzzled. We checked you out and found you are a multi-millionaire. What puzzles us is why you would bother to borrow $5,000. The blonde replies, where else in New York City can I park my car for 2 weeks for only $15.41? George goes inside a market to buy some food. He got to the vegetable section and said to the lady who was selling the vegetables, hello, miss. The lady, hello, sir. How can I help you? George, can I please have 5 kilograms of potatoes, but can you wrap them individually in a paper? Sure. So she wrapped each potato in a piece of paper, put them in a bag, and gave them to George. George, can I please have 7 kilograms of onions, but again, can you wrap them individually in paper? The lady, yeah, why not? So she took each onion, wrapped it in paper, put the onions in the bag, and gave them to George. George, can I please have 4 kilograms of carrots? The lady, and I assume that you want each carrot wrapped in paper, right? George, if it is still possible, yes, please. So she took each carrot, wrapped it in paper, put the carrots in the bag, and gave them to George. The lady, is there anything else, sir? George, yes, what are those black things on your right? The lady, oh, sir, those are poppy seeds, but they're not for sale. A blonde was speeding when a local police officer pulled her over and walked up to the car. The officer also happened to be a blonde, and she asked for the blonde's driver's license. The driver searched frantically in her purse for a while and finally said to the blonde policewoman, what does a driver's license look like? Irritated, the blonde cop said, "You dummy, it's got your picture on it." The blonde driver frantically searched her purse again and found a small rectangular mirror down at the bottom. She held it up to her face and said, "Aha, this must be my driver's license," and handed it to the blonde policewoman. The blonde cop looked in the mirror, handed it back to the driver, and said, "You're free to go. And if I had known you were a police officer too, we could have avoided all of this." A young couple gets married and has their first night together in their new home. As they are undressing for bed, the husband hands the wife his pants. "Here, try these on," he says. "What? Why?" she says. "Just put them on," he insists. "They're way too big," she says. "I can't wear those." "That's right," he says. "I wear the pants in this marriage. Don't you forget it." "Got it," she says, slipping off her panties and handing them to him. "Here, try these on." He holds them up and sees how tiny they are. "Are you kidding?" he says. "I can't get into your panties." "That's right, and that's the way it's going to stay until your attitude changes." An old woman tells her husband that if he walks across the kitchen floor after she mops again, she's going to kill him. The next time she mops the kitchen floor, he does it again. He gets the kitchen floor dirty and tracks water into the living room. She does as promised. Without saying a word, she goes to their bedroom, gets his pistol out of the closet, and shoots him dead in his recliner. Then she calls 911 and tells them, "I told my husband that if he walks through the kitchen after I mop, then I will kill him. He didn't listen and I shot him." Emergency dispatch immediately sends an ambulance for the husband and a squad car for the wife. The chief of police hears about the call shortly afterwards and thinks it's a rather strange story, so he drives to the house. When he gets there, his officers are still waiting outside. He said, "Officers, why haven't you gone inside and arrested the woman?" They reply, "Sir, we can't go in now. The kitchen floor is still wet." A woman was in bed with her lover when she heard her husband opening the front door. In a panic, she told her lover, "Hurry, stand in the corner. Don't move until I tell you to. Just shut your eyes and pretend you're a statue." At that moment, her husband walked into the room. "What's this, honey?" he asked. "Oh, it's just a statue," she replied nonchalantly. "The Smiths bought one for their bedroom. I liked it so much, I got one for us too." They went to sleep, and then around 3 o'clock in the morning, the husband got out of bed, went to the kitchen, and came back with a sandwich and a glass of milk. "Here," he said to the statue, "eat something. I stood like an idiot at the Smiths for 3 days, and nobody offered me so much as a glass of water." A sign on a restaurant window says, "If you order it and we don't have it, you instantly win $1 million. A man walking by notices the sign and walks in the restaurant and sits down at the table with a smirk on his face. The waiter asks what he will be having, and the man says, "I will have white rhinoceros stew, please." The waiter comes out with a boiling hot bowl of exactly what the man ordered. The man is taken by surprise, but he eats his stew and pays for his very expensive meal and leaves angrily. The next day, he comes back and sits at the table with the smirk on his face again and tells the waiter, "Today I will have bullet ants stuffed with dolphin meat." The waiter leaves and quickly comes back after a few minutes with exactly what the man ordered. The man, surprised again, eats his meal angrily, pays, and leaves. The next day, he comes back and sits at the table and tells the waiter, "Today I will have lactating mermaid sandwich." A few minutes go by and the waiter comes holding 2 massive duffel bags with the $1 million. The man, overcome with excitement, says, "I knew it! You don't have mermaid breasts." The waiter tells him politely, "We actually have it, sir. It's just that we ran out of bread." A professor, a CEO, and a janitor are in a forest when they discover a magic fairy. The fairy says, "I will give you what you most desire if you do someone else's job for a day." The professor says, "I'll be an elementary school teacher. What can be so hard about teaching a bunch of 6-year-olds how to read?" So he is teleported into a classroom. After a few minutes, all the kids screaming gets on his nerves, so he throws all his supplies and gives up. The CEO says, "I'll be a waiter. All you do is carry food back and forth. This'll be a breeze." So he is teleported to a restaurant. After about an hour, all the annoying customers drive him insane, so he smashes his plates on the ground and gives up. The janitor says, "I'll be an artist," so he is transported to an art facility. He glues all the classroom supplies and shattered plates to a canvas, then sells it for $1 billion. The fairy asks the janitor how he was so clever. The janitor says, "I got a master's degree in art." A friend of mine who was an officer invited me for a ride along. As we were driving along, he told me, "I've been a cop for almost 20 years now. I can follow anyone, and I mean anyone, for just 1 mile down the road, and I can find something I can cite them for." I said, "Prove it." So he started following the next guy he saw. After a mile, he said, "I can't believe it. He didn't do a single thing wrong. I'm gonna pull him over and let him know." He pulls the guy over, goes up to him and says, "Sir, I'm sorry I pulled you over. I just wanted to compliment you. I followed you for a while and not once did you speed, change lanes without signaling, or do anything else deserving of a citation. I rarely see this, so I wanted to thank you for your safe driving." The guy looks up at him and replies, "Well, you've got to be careful when you're drunk." Three friends are in a hotel room in Soviet Russia. The first two men open a bottle of vodka, while the third is tired and goes straight to bed. He's unable to sleep, however, as his increasingly drunk friends tell political jokes loudly. After a while, the tired man gets frustrated and walks downstairs for a smoke. He stops in the lounge and asks the receptionist to bring tea to their room in 5 minutes. The man walks back into the room, joins the table, leans towards a power outlet and speaks into it. "Comrade Major, we want some tea in room 62, please." His friends laugh at the joke until there is a knock on the door. The receptionist brings a teapot. His friends fall silent and pale, horrified of what they just witnessed. The party is dead, and the man goes to sleep. After a good night's rest, the man wakes up and notices his friends are gone. Surprised, he walks downstairs and asks the receptionist where they went. The nervous receptionist whispers, "The KGB came and took them before dawn." The man is horrified. He wonders why he was spared. The receptionist responds, "Well, Comrade Major did quite like your tea joke." A young New York woman was so depressed, she decided to end her life by throwing herself into the ocean. Just before she could throw herself from the docks, a handsome young man stopped her. "You have so much to live for," he said. "I'm a sailor, and we're off to Italy tomorrow. I'll stow you away on my ship. I'll take care of you, bring you food every day, and keep you happy. When we get to Italy, you will be so glad you're alive." With nothing to lose and always wanting to see Italy, she accepted. That night, the sailor brought her aboard and hid her in a small but comfortable compartment in the ship's hold. From then on, every night, he would bring her sandwiches and a bottle of red wine and make love to her until dawn. 2 weeks later, she was discovered by the captain during a routine inspection. "What are you doing here?" asked the captain. "I have an arrangement with a sailor. He brings me food and I get a free trip to Italy." "I see," the captain says. Then her conscience got the best of her and she added, "Plus, he's screwing me." "He certainly is," replied the captain. "This is the Staten Island ferry." A woman comes home early and finds her husband in bed with a girl. She is furious and threatens to kill them both. Her husband says, "Believe me, darling, this is just a misunderstanding. I was driving home and saw this young lady trying to catch a ride, so I decided to give her a lift. I ask her where she needs to go, and she tells me she wants to visit some relatives but isn't sure about their address, so I took her home so she could check our phone book. Once there, I saw her dress was pretty ragged, so I gave her your old dress. Nearly 2 years it's been, hanging in the closet, and you never wore it. Then I saw her shoes were also about to fall apart, so I gave her your old shoes, which have been doing nothing but collecting dust for 3 years. Of course, she said thanks and then asked, 'Excuse me, sir, is there anything else in this house your wife never uses?'" Attorney: "Doctor, before you performed the autopsy, did you check for a pulse?" Witness: "No." Attorney: "Did you check for blood pressure?" Witness: "No." Attorney: "Did you check for breathing?" Witness: "No." Attorney: "So then it is possible that the patient was alive when you began the autopsy?" Witness: No. Attorney: how can you be so sure, doctor? Witness: because his brain was sitting on my desk in a jar. Attorney: I see, but could the patient have still been alive nevertheless? Witness: yes, it is possible that he could have been alive and practicing law. A guy driving a Kia pulls up at a stoplight next to a Rolls-Royce. The driver of the Kia rolls down his window and shouts, "Hey buddy, that's a nice car. You got Wi-Fi in your Rolls? I've got Wi-Fi in my Kia." The driver of the Rolls looks over and simply says, "Yes, I have Wi-Fi." The driver of the Kia says, "Cool, hey, you got a fridge in there too?" "I got a fridge in the back seat of my Kia." The driver of the Rolls, looking annoyed at this point, says, "Yes, I have a refrigerator. A Rolls-Royce is the finest luxury car in the world." The driver of the Kia says, "That's a very cool car. Hey, you got a bed in there too?" "I got a bed in the back of my Kia." Upset that he did not have a bed, the driver of the Rolls-Royce sped away. He went straight to the dealer where he promptly ordered that a bed be installed in the back of the Rolls-Royce. The next morning, the driver of the Rolls-Royce picked up his car. The bed looked superb, complete with silk sheets and brass trim. It was clearly a bed fit for a Rolls-Royce. So, the driver of the Rolls drove around all day looking for the Kia. Finally, late that night, he finds the Kia parked, with all the windows fogged up from the inside. The driver of the Rolls gets out of his car and knocks on the Kia's window. At first, there is no answer. Then, the owner sticks his head out, soaking wet. "I now have a bed in my Rolls-Royce," the driver of the Rolls said ironically. The driver of the Kia says, "You got me out of the shower to tell me that?" A man wakes up after a night of drinking to see a single red rose on his bedside table. Beside the rose is a glass of water, 2 Advil, and a note from his wife. The note says, "Hi, honey. The pills are for your headache. When you're ready, come down to the kitchen and I'll fix your favorite breakfast. Love you." He also notices that he's still in the clothes he was wearing last night and that they aren't very comfortable. He goes down to the kitchen to find his wife humming happily to herself and dancing around in her apron. Upon seeing her husband, she dances up to him and gives him a loving kiss and says, "Go wait in the dining room. Breakfast will be ready soon." So he goes and waits in the dining room. The man's son is also sitting there. He quietly asks his son, "Hey, do you know what's up with Mom?" The boy looked up and said, "Well, Dad, do you remember coming home drunk last night? You were pretty out of it. You went upstairs and crawled in bed with Mom. Well, you were still in your jeans and shirt, and Mom didn't think that was very comfortable, so she decided to help you get undressed for bed. She couldn't, though, because every time she tugged on your shirt, you would push her away and yell, 'Get off me, lady, I'm married.'" 2 men are walking their dogs, a Doberman and a Chihuahua, when they see a restaurant. They're pretty hungry, so they decide to head in for a bite to eat. Unfortunately, they see a sign out front that says, "No dogs allowed." The man with the Doberman says, "I know what to do. Just follow my lead." He throws on a pair of sunglasses and walks in. The waiter tells him, "I'm sorry, sir, we don't allow dogs here." The man says, "Oh, you don't understand. I'm blind and this is my guide dog." "A Doberman for a guide dog?" the waiter asks, skeptical. "Yes," the man replies. "Dobermans are very loyal. They're easy to train and protective too. They're born for the job." The waiter sighs and leads the man to a table. The second man, excited by this idea, throws on his sunglasses and walks in. The waiter tells him, "I'm sorry, sir, we don't allow dogs here." The man says, "Oh, you don't understand. I'm blind, and this is my guide dog." "A Chihuahua for a guide dog?" the waiter asks. "A Chihuahua?" the man asks. "They gave me a Chihuahua?" The owner of a seafood restaurant sends one of his sons undercover to his rival's restaurant. The owner tells him to get a job as a cook and figure out the recipe for his rival's famous clam chowder. The first day, the son comes home with a basic list of ingredients that the rival uses. They try making it, but it doesn't turn out the same. The owner sends him back. The second day, the son comes home having watched the rival chef prepare the chowder. They try again to make it, and it's close, but the consistency is off. It's too watery. They try to figure out what they're doing wrong, and the son realizes that he was distracted for a minute while the chef did something. He must have added a secret ingredient, one not on the list, while you looked away, concludes the owner. He sends his son back for a third day, this time telling him not to take his eyes off the chef for a second. The son comes back the next day, excited. You'll never believe what I saw. He did have a secret ingredient. It's a piece of paper. A piece of paper? Yeah, he keeps a stack of printed paper in the kitchen. It's a bunch of Wikipedia articles he's printed out of various movies. When he makes the chowder, he tears out the synopsis of a movie from one of the articles and puts it in. It's the strangest thing, but that's the secret ingredient. Ah, the plot thickens. Last week, we took some friends out to a new restaurant. We noticed that the waiter who took our order carried a spoon in his shirt pocket. It seemed a little strange. When the waiter brought our water and cutlery, I noticed he also had a spoon in his shirt pocket. Then I looked around and saw that all the staff had spoons in their pockets. When the waiter came back to serve our soup, I asked, "Excuse me, but why the spoon?" Well, he explained, the restaurant's owners hired Anderson Consulting to revamp all our processes. After several months of analysis, they concluded that the spoon was the most frequently dropped piece of cutlery. It represents a drop frequency of approximately 3 spoons per table per hour. If our staff are better prepared, we can reduce the number of trips back to the kitchen and save 15 man-hours per shift. As luck would have it, I dropped my spoon, and he was able to replace it with his spare. I'll get another spoon next time I go to the kitchen instead of making an extra trip to get it right now. I was impressed. I also noticed that there was a string hanging from the waiter's zip on his trousers. Looking around, I noticed that all the waiters had the same string hanging from their flies. So before he walked off, I asked the waiter, "Excuse me, but can you tell me why you have that string right there?" "Oh, certainly." Then he lowered his voice. Not everyone is so observant. That consulting firm I mentioned also found out that we can save time in the restroom. By tying this string to the tip of you-know-what, we can pull it out without touching it and eliminate the need to wash our hands, shortening the time spent in the restroom by 76.39%. I asked, "After you get it out, how do you put it back?" "Well," he whispered, "I don't know about the others, but I use the spoon." 3 weddings were occurring at the same hotel one weekend. After the ceremonies and wedding meals, all 3 grooms happened to be at the bar at the same time, and they got talking about how they were looking forward to their wedding nights. The first groom said, "Hey, we should let each other know how we got on. How about at breakfast, the number of pieces of toast we order is the number of times we, consummated our marriages." The other 2 grooms agreed, and they went on their way partying until the small hours, whereupon they took their respective brides to their respective rooms for their respective wedding nights. The next morning, at breakfast, they all gave each other little smiles until the waiter asked the first groom how many pieces of toast he would like. "Just 3 pieces of toast for me," he announced, and the other 2 grooms gave him appreciative nods. The second groom, when asked by the waiter, said in a slightly louder voice, "I shall have 5 pieces of toast, please." And with a big grin, he looked around and saw the other 2 grooms winking at him and raising their glasses of orange juice. Finally, the waiter approached the third groom and asked how many pieces of toast he would like. The man answered, "I will have 7 pieces of toast, please. And can you make 2 of them brown?"
A young pastor sat in a restaurant enjoying his lunch. As he ate, he opened a letter from his mother, which had arrived that morning. When he unfolded it, a $20 bill fluttered onto the table. "Thanks, Mom," he thought. "I really needed this right now." As he finished his meal, he noticed a beggar leaning against a lamppost outside. The man looked down on his luck, and the pastor felt a tug at his heart. He hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. Pulling the envelope back out, he crossed out the names and, in large letters, wrote, "Persevere." Without drawing attention to himself, he tucked the bill back inside, placed the envelope under his arm, and casually dropped it as he walked past the man. The beggar picked it up, read the message, and smiled. The next day, as the pastor sat down for another meal, he felt a tap on his shoulder. Turning, he saw the same man, grinning and holding out a thick wad of cash. Bewildered, the pastor asked, "What's this?" The man chuckled, "Your half of the winnings. Persevere came in first in the 4th race at the track yesterday, paid 30 to 1. Two couples decided to host a friendly dinner party one evening. During the evening, Jim accidentally dropped his napkin under the table. When he bent down to pick it up, he couldn't help but notice that Bob's wife, Sue, wasn't wearing any underwear under her dress. The shocking discovery left Jim flustered, and in his haste to sit back up, he bumped his head on the table, emerging red-faced and awkward. Later, while Jim was helping himself to drinks in the kitchen, Sue walked in and with a sly smile asked, "Did you like what you saw under the table?" Caught off guard, Jim hesitated but finally admitted, "Well, yes, I did." Sue leaned closer and whispered, "If you want it, it'll cost you $500. Jim was stunned but intrigued. After a brief internal debate, he agreed to her proposition. Sue suggested he come by her house Friday afternoon since Bob would be at work. When Friday rolled around, Jim arrived at Sue's house at 2 p.m. sharp. After handing her the agreed $500, they went to the bedroom and the deal was done. Jim quickly dressed, thanked Sue, and left. That evening, when Bob came home, he casually asked Sue, "Did Jim stop by the house today?" Sue's heart skipped a beat, but she replied, "Why, yes, he did drop by for a little while." Bob nodded and asked, "Did he give you $500? Sue, trying to stay composed, answered, "Well, yes, he did." Bob grinned and said, "Perfect. He stopped by the office this morning and borrowed $500 from me. He promised he'd drop it off at the house today. Glad he kept his word." Now that is what you call playing the long game. Upon arriving home, a husband was met at the door by his sobbing wife. Tearfully, she explained, "It's the pharmacist. He insulted me terribly this morning on the phone." Immediately, the husband drove downtown to confront the pharmacist and demand an apology. Before he could say more than a word or two, the pharmacist told him, "Now, just a minute, listen to my side of it. This morning, the alarm failed to go off, so I was late getting up. I went without breakfast and hurried out to the car just to realize I locked the house with both my house and car keys inside. I had to break a window to get my keys. Then, driving a little too fast, I got a speeding ticket. Later, when I was about 3 blocks from the store, I had a flat tire. When I finally got to the store, there were a bunch of people waited for me to open up. I opened the store and started waiting on these people, and all the time the damn phone was ringing off the hook." He continued, "Then I had to break a roll of nickels against the cash register drawer to make change, and they spilled all over the floor. I got down on my hands and knees to pick up the nickels. The phone was still ringing. When I stood up, I cracked my head on the open cash drawer, which made me stagger back against a showcase with a bunch of perfume bottles on it. All of them hit the floor and broke. Meanwhile, the phone is still ringing with no let-up, and I finally get to answer it. It was your wife. She wanted to know how to use a rectal thermometer. And believe me, mister, as God is my witness, all I did was tell her." Roger is a hard worker, and he spends most of his nights bowling or playing volleyball. One weekend, his wife decides that he needs to relax a little and take a break from sports, so she takes him to a strip club. The doorman at the club spots them and says, "Hey, Roger, how are you tonight?" His wife, surprised, asks his wife if he's been here before. No, he's just one of the guys I bowl with." They are seated, and the waitress approaches, sees Roger, and says, "Nice to see you, Roger. A gin and tonic, as usual." His wife's eyes widen. "You must come here a lot." No, I just know her from volleyball." Then a stripper walks up to the table. She throws her arms around Roger and says, "Roger, a table dance as usual?"
His wife, fuming, collects her things and storms out of the bar. Roger follows her and spots her getting into a cab, so he jumps into the passenger seat. His wife looks at him, seething with fury, and lets Roger have it with both barrels. At this, the cabbie leans over and says, "Sure looks like you picked up a fare tonight, Roger."
Two hunters went moose hunting every winter without success. Finally, they came up with a foolproof plan. They got a very authentic female moose costume and learned the mating call of a female moose. The plan was to hide in the costume, lure the bull, then come out of the costume and shoot the bull. They set themselves up on the edge of a clearing, donned their costume, and began to give the moose love call. Before long, their call was answered as a bull came crashing out of the forest and into the clearing. When the bull was close enough, the guy in front said, "Okay, let's get out and get him." After a moment that seemed like an eternity, the guy in the back shouted, "The zipper is stuck. What are we gonna do?" The guy in the front says, "Well, I'm gonna start nibbling grass, but you'd better brace yourself."